Hello everyone, here is our first presentation. This is how I'm going to present each lesson for the remainder of the semester. Some narrated PowerPoints, and I think actually it might be better than it was before now that I've gone through this. It's taken me a really long time to create this, but just because the technical part I'm not so great at. I have like negative technology juju, but I think it has turned out well. I just realized when I tried to upload this to YouTube that it's too long, so I have to cut it in half, and I'm going to do a part 1 and part 2, but I trust that you guys can handle that. So as you go through this, what you're going to do is you're going to pause the video at certain times and go do other things. I'm going to tell you to go watch videos in other places from our Moodle page, or to pause the video to do some questions that I'm going to ask you. Sometimes I use the word click until I realize I need to pause. So forgive me for that error. And just so as we go forward, what we're going to do is these narrated PowerPoints, and then also do Zoom meetings where we will just meet for discussion if you have questions, or you need some clarity on something, or you just want to check in. And I will save all of those Zoom meetings and post them. So if you miss one because you have to be with your family, don't worry about it. It's okay. I'll post everything. And if you want to have a one-on-one Zoom meeting with me, please just let me know and I'll set that up. It's quite easy. So my daughter just walked in the room, so enjoy the rest of the PowerPoint. Okay, so now on to our Chapter 6, How Cells Harvest Chemical Energy, or Cellular Respiration. This one's a doozy, but we're going to get through it together. Okay, so it wouldn't be me teaching something without an analogy. So let's start our cellular respiration analogy. I always like to think about it as if you wanted to buy something from a vending machine, and the only thing that you had, lucky you, the only thing that you had to get your, let's say, Sun Chips out of the vending machine is a $100 bill. So let's make believe all you have is a $100 bill to get your Sun Chips. You clearly have enough money to get Sun Chips. You can buy lots of people Sun Chips with your $100 bill, but you actually cannot use it in the form that it's in. It's in an unusable form in a vending machine. So what would you have to do? You would have to go to, you can't use it, so what you have to do, you'd have to go to the person who converts your money. That's the best image I could find. Go to the person who converts your money and ask them to convert your $100 bill into dollar bills. Dollar bills in this situation are usable. We can use those in the vending machine. All right, so we're going to get our $1 bills, and we're going to use them in the vending machine, and out will come your Sun Chips. And you can enjoy those. You will have lots of dollars, but you will have Sun Chips, so you'll be happy. So this is a direct analogy to cellular respiration. So that conversion of unusable money, the $100 bill, into usable money, the $1 bill, is a perfect analogy for cellular respiration. And I probably don't believe me, but it actually is. It is a perfect analogy. So let's talk about that. Okay, so let's see how this really works inside the cells. So let's imagine you have eaten, right? You have a nice margarita pizza from Baba Louie's down in South County. That pizza is chock full of delicious carbohydrates, glucose, for example. That's going to be the molecule we're going to watch through this entire presentation. We're going to look at this glucose molecule. Remember, glucose is C6H12O6. You kind of have to have that as prior knowledge. So we're going to use that glucose molecule as our source of energy. That's going to be the source, but it's like a $100 bill. It packs too much energy. It actually cannot be used for simple energy tasks like just moving molecules from one place in a cell to another. It's way too much. It's like using TNT, right, or dynamite to, just unlock the door. So it's way too much energy. So instead, we have to send it to the mitochondria, where it gets converted through cellular respiration Cellular respiration is lots of steps, so we'll get through all of those, I promise. And in that process of cellular respiration, what we're actually doing is taking the potential energy that's stored in the bonds of that glucose molecule. Look at all those bonds, right? All the lines between C and O and C, right? Carbon and hydrogen bonds, oxygen, hydrogen bonds. All those are going to get broken through this process. It's a long, many-step process, but you can see you make a lot of ATP in the process. And ATP is our usable energy source. So let's just check that out again. So there's our glucose molecule with all those bonds. Remember, those bonds have potential energy in them, and we need to harvest that potential energy that's stored in those bonds. So we're going to systematically and slowly, enzymatically, we're going to remove the energy from there. So this glucose molecule is that unusable molecule, just like our $100 bill. It packs a ton of potential and chemical energy, but it's just unusable. So we need to convert it to ATP, which is our usable form of energy. You're going to see we call it energy currency. We use it as currency to pay for things that we need to do in our cells, pay for work, like moving a vesicle from one side of a cell to another, to move stuff across a membrane when we're going from low concentration to high concentration, right? Going against the gradient. So we're going to use ATP for all of that, right? So here we go on to cellular respiration, and we're going to look at aerobic cellular respiration. We're going to focus on eukaryotes like you and I and your dog and a giraffe and fish and things like that. We're not going to focus on anything that does it anaerobically. Okay, so we couldn't talk about cellular respiration without talking about photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is ultimately our way in which we get all the carbohydrates that we eat. For all organisms, that's where that glucose molecule comes from, because plants are able to take the radiant energy from the sun and convert it into those carbs. You and I, we can't do that. We're not green. We don't have chlorophyll, so we can't do that. So you can see the plants are that you should recognize that little picture. That's just Elodea, like we saw in the lab. And they have chloroplasts, which contain chlorophyll, and that is where the radiant energy from the sun is captured. And in that process of photosynthesis, they're going to use atmospheric carbon dioxide and water, rearrange the atoms, and turn it into glucose and oxygen that we breathe. So thank a plant the next time you see one. So in cellular respiration, what's going to happen is we're going to take that glucose, and just a sort of a misconception that happens with students or anyone, lots of people, not just anyone has this misconception. They think that plants, because they do photosynthesis, they don't do cellular respiration, and that is not true. Plants have mitochondria and chloroplasts, so they do photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So let's just make sure we don't have that misconception. But in cellular respiration, what's going to happen is that sugar that was made by the plants is going to be broken down into its basic format of carbon dioxide and water, which is breathed out even by plants. And then in that process of breaking down that glucose, what we're going to do is we're going to make ATP, right? That's that $1 bill. That's our energy currency. It's usable. We can use it to do work. So that's very, very important. That's why we do cellular respiration. And most of the process happens in the mitochondria. We're going to see not all of it. And remember, we're only talking about eukaryotes, right? Organisms that have membrane-bound organelles. We're not going to be talking about prokaryotes too much, maybe just a little bit. Okay, so this is a little bit of a review, I think, for some of you. We did cover this a little bit. Well, let's go over it one more time. So we can just see this is an excellent example of the first law of thermodynamics, where energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred or transformed from one form to another. And we can see that perfectly here, because you can see in photosynthesis that the reactants of photosynthesis are the products of of cellular respiration, which is pretty neat if you can follow that along. I'm actually trying to find a little highlighter here, and forgive me if I don't do this right, but hopefully this works. So we can see here that the carbon dioxide and the water that plants use to do photosynthesis, the energy part is obviously the sun, right? And if you just look, they just rearrange all those atoms and they get turned into glucose and the oxygen that we all breathe, okay? But then if you just look at the products of photosynthesis, they are the reactants of cellular respiration that all organisms need. So this is like the perfect circle of life. I feel like I can sing the song from The Lion King right now, but it'd be better if my daughter sang it than me. We can see here that all that's happening is just a rearranging of atoms. They're all getting rearranged. There's no, remember the sort of silly example of if you're going to make brownies, you put the brownie mix, you put the oil and the eggs and the water all together, you put it in the oven, you're not going to get a filet mignon out, right? You're definitely not going to get a filet mignon out. You're going to get brownies out because the first law of thermodynamics states that